KMOX's news director, John Butler, is retiring after 20 years. 20 years at KMOX. And let me tell you, it's been a long 20 years. Butler was a tough man to work for at times, very demanding, exacting. He insisted that KMOX News ask the tough questions at news conferences, get in politicians' faces, he'd always say. And if you didn't do a story just right yesterday, you could be sure that this morning you'd be in his office with the door closed, sharp directives about how you fell short and what you need to do to get your head out of your... As I was saying, Butler could be very demanding, and I began to wonder, who was this guy? I overheard once that when the Ken Burns documentary on the Civil War was on, that Butler remarked that he was a descendant of General Benjamin Butler. Look at those eyes. I was working for this guy's great-great-grandson. General Butler was one of the harshest forces in the war. In New Orleans, they were so mad at him that they created Benjamin Butler chamber pots so people could go to the bathroom on his face. Another time I heard Butler mention that his father was a state trooper and his father participated in the manhunt for bank robber John Dillinger. I always liked Dillinger, but after I heard the Butlers were chasing him, I liked Dillinger even more. Well, I began to think of myself as Dillinger when I would have programming meetings with Butler, and I would just look at him from across the desk. Butler was also a micromanager, so much so that once I was on a vacation, I threw my suitcase on the bed of a Holiday Inn in another town, and the phone rang, and I picked it up. I thought it must be the front desk, and it was Butler. I could hear the newsroom machines clattering in the background. He said, "Colleen, I've just got some ideas for that story that you're going to cover bright and early Monday morning." I said, "Are you calling me on my vacation?" Well, it went on for years like this. He and I, we butted heads, and I found it very hard to warm up to him. But then something happened. It was on a dark night in February of 2008. I was at the funeral home, crowded wake of my father. And I look over, and here comes Butler in a gray suit. He walks into the room, and he kneels down in front of the casket, and he said a prayer for my dad. Well, after that, I was okay with Butler. I could go along with pretty much anything he'd said. It's going to be different not having Butler around. He drove us hard, and we won a lot of awards under him, but he did have a lighter side. Mostly at the end of the day, when the work was done and he was on his way out the door, he'd stop and chat with us like we were all buddies. I think as time goes by, our memories of him and his harsh directives will soften, and we'll miss him in a way that you'll think, we went through something together for 20 years. We went through life together. With a whole nother story, I'm Kevin Killeen.